Here we go. Welcome to Double Dribble Bucks. I am Seth. With me, as always, is my good friend Brett. How you doing tonight, Brett?
I'm doing fantastic. We're getting into the trade deadline, so lots of rumors going out there for the Bucks. And then we got rivalry week against the Heat this week, so hopefully it's a good game.
Yeah, hopefully we beat our big rival, Miami. Which I guess is a rival. Is that who you would expect to play, or is there another team that you'd prefer that we play in rivalry week?
I'm fine with it. The Heat have kind of been a thorn in our side for a while, and I guess you just add in the Tyler Hero connection. The announcers love to say that he's from Wisconsin, and so I guess that maybe adds to the storyline. Jimmy Butler playing at Marquette. I guess that makes sense. That's fine. Like, I think lately you could include Indiana, just based on kind of how it was the last year. If you're doing rivalry week, that might work. Philly seems that they always want to be our rival, but just can't seem to do anything. Every other team, you're kind of just like, yeah, it's fine. So, I'll take Miami. That works.
Yeah, and I like Indiana. They actually kind of feel more like the number one rivalry just at the moment, just in this past year, especially with the whole like taking the ball incident and losing last year, the cup and the playoffs and all that. So yeah, but Miami should be good. We're halfway through the season. The Bucks are 24-17. They are fourth in the East. And, it feels maybe worse than it is. 24-17, that's a pretty good record. How are you feeling about it halfway through?
Obviously I think we could have been doing better. We fired Adrian Griffin for having a better record than this. And,
yeah.
I think the hopes were pretty high for Doc to come in. So this is kind of like I don't know, it's not giving fans a huge shot of optimism just because it's like, all right, we've lost 17 games. It just seems like it's a lot. But, for those of us that have been watching a lot of the games, a lot of them are close. There's definitely ones that we should not have lost. But it's hard to fight the fact that, in fourth, with a record like this where it seems like we barely have a winning record, I don't think where everybody envisioned the team at this point.
Yeah, I agree. It could be worse with how it started, but definitely feels like it should be better. And hopefully it's getting there. Hopefully we are on a good momentum, and we're just going to keep racking up these wins. And like I said, we're fourth in the East, but we're only one game or 1.5 games behind the Knicks. It feels like 5+ games, but we're almost, we're right there. So we really should be ending the season top 3, I hope. It'd be really nice to not be 4. If you're the 4 seed, you're going to play the 1 seed potentially in the second round. So I think we really do want to get to that 2 or 3 seed, and it's very doable. It's right there. I don't think we're going to catch that 1 seed. Cavs running away with it. Boston kind of stumbling along here a little bit, but I'm going to guess that they're going to stick it out in that 2 seed. But I think a good chance to get the 3 seed. The Knicks are kind of having problems here, and we gotta take it over. Let's do some awards here. Half season awards. Let's just jump into it. Who's your MVP?
I think it's obviously Giannis. He's just, an absolute force, leading the league in scoring, rebounding, passing. His defense has been awesome. He's just all around player. So I don't know how you could say it's anybody but Giannis right now.
Yeah, it's obvious. It is Giannis. A little bit to say about him is he's made the most field goal, or he has the most field goals made per game, and shoots the 5th most attempts. So obviously very efficient, which we all know. Over 50% every single game except for one time. Just an amazing player. And when he has a bad game, it's still like he's the best player on the floor. So he's just completely dominant with it. Maybe here's the question. If Giannis was not playing, so we're 24-17, no Giannis, what is the Bucks record?
Ooh. Optimistically 17-24. Realistically, I'd say it would be 10 and what would that be, 32?
10 wins. Wow. I mean, yeah. I mean, he is that good. 10 would be second to last in the East. Washington is 6-35. The Raptors are 11-32. Um, I think you're on the right track. The Bucks would not be good. I think we'd be, you know what? Maybe we would be 10 and whatever because we would be trading Middleton and Dame. We'd be like capturing the flag probably. So yeah, I think he's at least 7 wins. To your point, so I'd say I think we're like he's like giving us 7 to 10 wins. I think we might be like 15 and whatever that would be. But yeah, he's obviously the MVP. There's really no one else that possibly could be. So let's jump to most improved player. Do you have a most improved player from last year?
Yeah, I think it's definitely Dame. He had a lot of expectations coming to Milwaukee. People that didn't know his game were kind of expecting a 40-point per night guy, and playing with Giannis is its own animal. It's not the same as just playing with another big. It's not just the same as playing with just another I don't know what, because he's always going to be the best player on the court. And once you realize, as good as you are, I mean, Damian Lillard, top 75 of all time, he has to know I'm not the best player on the court when Giannis is out there. And that takes some time, I'm sure, for these guys to get over that, because they always were the best player on the floor. And then even in like Dame's case, like that was clearly the whole reason that Portland did anything. And he just had to learn like, hey, I got to be able to be the second guy, facilitate the offense, and I'll still get mine. So yeah, for me, easy decision, Dame most improved.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Yeah, he's just a different player this season. He just seems more confident. He seems bought in. It's like this is his team. He's comfortable. He apparently did not want to come to Milwaukee. Initially when the trade was made, like this wasn't a destination that he had checked. This wasn't like an approved team for him. And he would never admit it, but I think it took him a little while. I think initially he didn't want to come. He was kind of disappointed, kind of upset about it, and it took him a little bit to kind of get into it. And I think the team, won him over. I think it's an awesome team, atmosphere, culture in Milwaukee, and I think that was a big part of kind of winning him over. And I think maybe the other thing, especially this season, I think winning the NBA Cup was a big deal. And just proving to ourselves, proving to Dame that this team can do it. Like they can win a championship, and they proved it out. It was only one game, it's not a 7-game series, but just beating the best teams, winning in a tournament fashion, I think really meant something. So just kind of going through last season, going through the struggles in the beginning of this season, and kind of some of the rotation changes that we've had. I think it's all kind of Dame's really bought in at this point. And he's like, this is a team that can win. I like this team. I like these guys. I'm friends with them. Kind of building a life together now. But for whatever reason, that transition was really hard for him. But I think he's there. I think we got him. He's a much more efficient player this year, a better team player. So I think that's a good call. I could easily go with Dame. I'm going to zag here, and I'm going to say most improved AJ Green. And one of the main things with AJ Green is he averaged only 10 minutes a game last season, and he's averaging like 30 minutes a game this season. So he's playing a lot more, and that's because he proved that he should be playing. He's shooting, he shot it really well last year. So I don't know the exact percent. Actually, he shot 42% last year. So pretty similar, actually a little bit better shooting wise, but he's shooting it more. He's on the floor a lot more. And I think we've all seen it, and the defense has just gotten better and better and better. And last year we kind of saw some of those improvements, and people were kind of making comments about, hey, AJ Green he can kind of hold his own a little bit. Now it's a proven thing. Everyone knows it. Teams are stop testing him. It's like he's a good defender. Everybody knows it now. So yeah, I think and then on offense too, he's a shooter, but he's kind of building a little bit more into his game. He's kind of driving it a little bit. He's got that one dribble pull up kind of, 20-foot shot. So he's kind of building that, and I'm hoping that continues to build because he could be a real threat on the offensive end. But yeah, obviously Doc probably thinks he's the most improved as well because he's given him a lot of playing time this season. All right, well, let's jump to maybe a more negative one. Is there a most disappointing player that you have?
Yes, it's Gary Trent Jr., without a doubt for me. I think when we got Gary Trent Jr., number one, he was like a dream signing in like the off season. Like, man, if you could find a way to get a guy like him, that would be awesome. Obviously, we could never afford it. So then all of a sudden, he can't find a contract. He comes to Milwaukee. It's like, holy shit, this is amazing. And he is not living up to what he was billed as. And maybe it's our fault for maybe thinking he was something he wasn't. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But I expected him to have been a starter this whole time, to continuously improve, to become a great scorer, but with significantly better defense. I think Malik Beasley pulls some offense back and ramp up the defense quite a bit. And he's the, eighth guy off the bench now. I don't know. Like, that's, to me, a huge disappointment. And maybe it shouldn't be because his contract is small. We're not paying him a whole lot to be here. But, man, I guess maybe from my expectation side, he's definitely the most disappointing. How about you?
Yeah, that's also a good call. Quick stat that might surprise you, though. Gary Trent Jr. has played more minutes than AJ Green this season.
Oh.
Is that crazy?
I don't know if I believe that.
I don't know either. I'm like looking at this like, is that true? I'm not sure it's true. I guess he has. He has played not that much more, 870 versus 812. So it's pretty close. But yeah, he's played more than AJ Green. And by the way, I was totally wrong on my stat for AJ Green. He's playing 21.4 minutes per game this season. So twice as much as last year. And probably more like 30 minutes in the past couple of months, I would guess. But anyhow, Trent Jr. is playing more. I think the Trent Jr. was so disappointing to start the season, and we haven't totally forgotten that. I think that's part of what you're thinking of, because he has really played much better. He's definitely shot the ball much better. Let me quick find that. Yeah, he's shooting 42% from three now.
Wow,
which is actually kind of ridiculous because he started like 20% or something after that 2-8 start. So yeah, not a bad call. I'm gonna go with someone maybe kind of a boring pick, or maybe someone I shouldn't pick on, but I'm gonna say Marjan Beauchamp is my most disappointing player. I guess I was just hoping he could at least have the attitude of a guy who's trying to get a few minutes and be that hustle guy, someone who's going to come in off the bench and give a spark to the team. And if he gave it his best and couldn't do it, that'd be one thing. But I just have never seen the right attitude, the right mentality. He just what I gather from watching him play, and I think you could see it in the garbage time minutes. He just wants to score. He just wants to be that guy, get out and get some buckets and, take you one-on-one and like that. He just seems like he wants to be that kind of a player, which if you're, incredible at it, you could make a great career out of doing that. But if you're not, then you really need to go to those fundamentals and the hustle plays and the defense. And also that's what the Bucks need. The Bucks don't need really another scorer. So, I guess it's not bad if you can score the ball, but we certainly need the defense and take the charges and make those plays from especially these guys coming off at the end of the bench. So just kind of disappointed that he's not even someone I think about playing. Now, Doc did put him in a couple of games here in the past, 10 games for 5 minutes or less, but he did give him some actual real minutes, which I was actually pretty surprised about. I don't think that's going to go anywhere, but I hope it does. That'd be great. But yeah, I guess I'm disappointed because I just haven't seen that from him to this point.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I think especially the more we see guys like AJ Green and Ajax who, when they're out there, you can tell they're hustling. They're trying to be, Ajax is starting, and a lot of times he's still like, I have to prove myself so I can get the next start, and I have to prove myself to get the next start.
Yeah.
That's the mentality that
Yeah.
we actually get to see, and Beauchamp just doesn't have that. And I don't know if it's because he sees the writing on the wall and, has the mindset of, all right, well, I'm not going to overdo it now. I'll just go somewhere else and really turn it on. That's obviously dangerous because people are going to not know that you can turn it on. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good pick. I'd like to see more energy from the guy. I think this is someone we were rooting for early on. And just, it doesn't seem like he's developing at all. And you're right. Like the time he is getting minutes, he's just hoping somebody gives him the ball so he can be the shooter. And I just don't think that's ever going to be his role.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he's long and athletic. The Bucks love those long and athletic guys, but you need a long and athletic guy with the right mentality. And he hasn't shown that yet. So, so I guess the last thing I wanted to go through with this half-season review here is what would you give Doc in terms of if you had to give him a grade? Let's just look at this season. What would you give him?
I think I'd give him about like a B minus. If you take away the first 10 games, that might be a lot higher because the team is starting to gel. They've had some really good win streaks. I think he's putting in lineups that seem to be challenging other teams. He's not afraid to play the rookies, which is a huge concern of ours. But the beginning of the season was just so like fall on your face out of the gate that it's hard to say like, all right, maybe, I don't know, like I'd like to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I would have expected a stronger start. And it makes it seem like maybe there's not buy-in, maybe there's something else I'm missing. So I feel comfortable with, I'll go with B minus.
Yeah, that's probably about right. I want to say C, but I think maybe somewhere in the B's is probably correct because, like we were saying, 24-17, fourth seed, it's not that bad. I feel like for one, immediately it cannot possibly be an A for not playing AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr. to start the season. It's just like, how can you not know? How can you not know that? Coming off of last season, they played enough, I thought, to understand who they were. Also, our team and what we need. It was like common sense. It was just like, of course, they need to play. And they didn't even play those first, 2, 3, 4 games, or they barely played. And that's just like, how are you that dumb? Or like, are you so loyal to veterans? Or, what's going on there? Thankfully, he made a change pretty quick, give him credit for that. It's just kind of like, you did have this team last year. You weren't coming in fresh. Like you had them for half a season and you couldn't figure that out. So that's obviously still bothers me. We've had another rough patch after the NBA Cup. That's just kind of like, what's going on here? So it's not as good as it should be. And I guess the other thing is I feel like some of these, I kind of like that he's experimenting with lineups here and there. And sometimes he'll throw these like really weird lineups out there. But a part of me is also like, why don't you have this figured out? Again, You've been here for basically a year now. So some of it's like pretty clear stuff here. It's not like you're figuring out everything. We're just kind of figuring out little pieces here and there. And why is it so difficult? Why can't you figure it out? And the main thing with that is, why are you not playing Giannis and 4 wings? Play small ball with Giannis at the 5. Please do it. If you did that, I think we would be a 2 seed right now, actually. Like, I do think that. Because the Celtics have, I think, 13 losses. I think we'd be dominant if you just played that 10 minutes a game. So I guess there's a few things here and there where I'm like, I don't know. It just seems like just the, pick the fruit off the tree. It's just easy thing to do here, and you're not doing it. So I talked myself back to a C. I'm going to give him a C just because I feel like he's not maximizing the roster. I think, when there's a lot of talk about like, oh, the Bucks roster sucks. Giannis is playing with nobody. They say it about Jokic in Denver as well. And it's like, I don't know. I kind of like our team. I kind of like our bench.
Yep.
I mean, we're talking about AJ Green. He's a great guy off the bench. That's amazing. So Andre Jackson Jr. He doesn't play as much as I would like. So there's kind of a number of things here, but I think we have a good roster. I think it's not being maximized. I'm going to give him a C.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I thought C plus, B minus, but yeah, that's okay. I think we're kind of on the same page there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. We're almost to the NBA trade deadline. There's been a lot of rumors flying around about the Bucks. A lot of them. A lot of different ones. They can't all be true, can they? But let's see. Let's talk about some of them. So let's just kind of react. Let's kind of go one by one with some of these kind of high-profile rumors that we've seen. So one of them was essentially trading Chris Middleton for Drew Holiday. So getting Drew back to the Bucks, but you lose Middleton. I guess the other thing to say is, so Drew is signed through the 27-28 season, and Middleton, I think, is one more season, I believe. They make very similar amount of money, so it's a pretty good like 1-for-1 swap here. But who would you prefer? Do you want that, and you're committed through 28 with Drew Holiday, or would you rather keep Middleton?
So I will answer your question, but I think I'm going to kind of avoid it for a second and say the only way I can see this happening is if Chris Middleton is retiring after this year. And I say that because I think Giannis and Chris have such a tight relationship that they would run it past him and say, well, what do you think? And I think Giannis, I don't know, I can't tell. He has such a desire to win, but if like Chris thinks he can still win, I think Giannis wants him to be there. Now in this case, Drew and him are close as well. But I think you'd have to know something about Chris to be like, hey, like what's the deal here? Because I don't think I don't know that Giannis would sign off on Chris leaving that easily. It's kind of a weird way to say that, but I think he's got a lot of pull with that. I would love to have Drew come back. I feel like it would kind of be like a reverse Beasley situation where it's like I don't really understand where everybody is at this point because Drew is not a scorer. He can score. He has had 50-point games. He can put up points, but he is not the scorer that Chris Middleton is. Now, he's a lockdown defender, but he's also a point guard. He has to be able to facilitate the offense, and that's what Dame does. So you can't play him at the same time. I mean, that's what I thought, but and you don't want to be paying a guy $35 million to lead the second unit. I just think that's a big drop off too. So the tough thing too is, without knowing Chris again, and that's kind of where I come back to, is Chris like my ankles just aren't getting better. My knees aren't getting better. Like all these things, like I can do what I can do and I can get through this contract, but this is going to be a lot for me to be able to keep playing. Then we might not sign him. And that alone is I would love to have Drew Holiday back versus, some of these other options that might exist. But to stop my rambling, I'm going to say I'd rather stick with Chris than make a trade for Drew at this point.
Yeah, that would be kind of a crazy move. They're both awesome guys. They're both guys that the Bucks fans love. So it would be sad to see Chris go, but then you get Drew back. It kind of makes up for it a little bit. Like, okay, well, we're getting Drew. He's a guy who we love. He's a Milwaukee Buck. He won a championship here. So I could see it happening if both teams actually wanted to go through with that. I think there's two ways to look at it. One, I'd be against it because I don't want Holiday's contract through 28. I mean, that to me, that's the easy thing. I don't want to be stuck with $35 million going to Drew Holiday for 3 more years. With Middleton, it's just next year and this year. So that's 2 extra years of $35 million for a player that I'm kind of questionable on. Like, what's he going to be like? I don't have Drew's age in front of me, but I think he's going to be 36, 37
I think
maybe
so, yeah.
at that time.
Mm-hmm. No, I think he's 36 now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe he's going to be like 39 at the end of that contract or something like that. So that's just like, oh man, I don't know about that. His, especially with like a defensive, keep the guy in front of you, kind of a defender? Is he going to be able to keep doing that? So I was worried back. I didn't want to re-sign him, and that's why I was kind of okay with that. One reason I was okay with that trade was like, well, I don't want to have to be forced to re-sign Drew Holiday anyways. So I'd be against it for that reason. But let's just say they both were like, it was just this one season. Who would you rather have? Holiday or Middleton? Gosh, that is really tough. I and I don't know what the answer is. I think Middleton, just because it is kind of hard to see where does Drew fit with Dame, with the roster. So you'd say, well, you could be right next to Dame. And yeah, I mean, I think that could work. I'm just kind of a little worried about Drew shooting it too much and kind of just messing up the chemistry and taking shots away from Dame and Giannis. And maybe that's dumb. Maybe did he take shots away from Giannis and Middleton, and was that negative? Honestly, yeah, I think he did. I think maybe the answer is yes. So I guess I think I'd go with Middleton for that reason. I'm talking myself into a lot of things today.
Yeah, this is great. I love it.
So, all right, we both love Middleton. We like you, Drew, but we're gonna hold on to Middleton. Okay,
we've moved on now.
Yeah. All right, we got two different centers that have been thrown out there. One of them is Patrick Williams, who's $18 million a year, signed through 28-29. Is that so? I'm not sure who I don't know what the trade would be exactly. $18 million. That's maybe it's Brook Lopez, or it's Portis and Connaughton. But why would they do that trade? I don't know. I don't know exactly how it would work. But the name Patrick Williams has certainly been floated out there. Is that someone that you think would be good for Milwaukee? Is that someone you want to take a chance on because he's hurt a lot? What do you think?
Well, I mean, he's young. He's 23, which is,
which is weird. Hasn't he been around for a while?
It kind of seems like it, but I mean, I guess he could be around for 5 years by now. That's possible.
It's possible. Yeah.
He's a young guy that is athletic, which would be nice, but he's only 6'7".
What?
Yeah, he's only 6'7".
Wow.
So that's not the kind of height that I'd like to lose. For like a power forward center that just doesn't. I mean, unless you're going to your philosophy of you have Giannis and 4 guards, and then your other lineup is also kind of small. I don't know. I don't love that one. I think it's also. I think Brook has been playing really well. I think he really provides a great veteran leadership approach. He's won a championship. He's played with Giannis. He knows what he's supposed to do. I mean, I feel like if I was going to say who's Dame's best friend on the team, it might be Brook. They seem to do the pick and roll really well. They seem to communicate well on the court. Like, I don't know. I don't see, based on the scenario of losing Lopez for that, I would say no. I would not trade Lopez for Patrick Williams.
Okay. I'm too afraid of his injuries. So, yeah. I like how young he is, though. That's appealing.
Yeah, that is great.
And yeah, he's only 6'7". That is surprising.
Yeah, 7-foot wingspan, but 6'7". So very long.
I'm just $18 million. Like, what if he is hurt all the time? It's just that would suck. Let's jump to the other big guy, who's actually a big guy. I think maybe I should. I'll double check it.
Let's check it out.
Larry Nance Jr., who's currently hurt, but I believe he's coming back. Not in a month or less or something like that. What do you think, Larry Nance Jr.?
6'8".
Also shorter than
also short. Yeah. Yeah. So we got Chris Middleton out there as center. Like, yeah, I don't know that I would do that either. He's a great defender, from my understanding, but I don't think again, you're losing some height there. I don't know how athletic he is. I don't know. It's just not enough to get me excited. And I mean, you'd be trading Bobby maybe for him.
Yeah, I think it'd be Bobby. Nance Jr. is $11 million, and it expires this season.
Yeah. So no, I'd rather have Bobby than Larry Nance Jr., who's 32. I don't think he's got a ton of playoff experience. So no, it's a no for me, dog.
I think I would do it. I think I would do it. And it would be Bobby. It'd be Bobby. I feel like Bobby's gone next year.
I think Bobby's gone next year.
I kind of hope he is, in this more in the sense that I think he's gonna get a decent contract. 20. I don't know how much. 15, 20 million. I guess who knows. I don't know these things. I think he's going to get paid more. I mean, because I believe he could opt into a contract at maybe 13 million or something, and all the talk is he's going to opt out. I mean, his numbers point to a guy who could make more money. So, yeah, I think he's gone next season. So I don't think that's a factor. Nance is just for this season also. So then he's going to be off the books, so to speak. So his age doesn't really matter to me in this regard. He is. I guess I haven't seen a ton of him, but I think he's pretty athletic. He's kind of, gives a spark off the bench, gets some blocks. Looking at his stats, he actually has shot the 3 ball pretty well. He doesn't take a ton of them, but takes 3.3 attempts and he's shooting 52%. So he can shoot 35% career 3-point. So that's good enough to spread the floor, I think. And that's kind of, it's one thing that would be really nice to have. But just in general, I really want, a more athletic center to back up Brook and a more defensive-oriented center, which I believe Nance Jr. is that guy. So I'd be willing to lose Portis scoring and maybe keep Middleton coming off the bench then. If you do that, I think I'm really more into Middleton's the sixth man, probably finishing games and whatnot, but kind of like a Malik Monk type of a player. I think that's been going well so far, and I wouldn't be surprised if that continued all season. But especially if you lose Portis, then I think you kind of have to do it because you need that scorer off the bench. And so then I think Portis is kind of less important as Middleton's doing that off the bench, and then we get the defense, and hopefully Nance Jr. is the guy who can kind of chase around these guys at the perimeter against the Boston Celtics and the Pacers and whoever, those types of teams. So I think for that reason I'd do it.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is a surprise to me that it's something that's even being talked about. But it apparently Mark Stein reported that the Bucks are interested in Bradley Beal, who is a max player through 26-27, and he currently comes off the bench for the Phoenix Suns. What do you think about Bradley Beal?
No thanks. So the Bradley Beal to the Bucks, I'm assuming Mark Stein is thinking that the Bucks had interest back in the day when he was still with Washington to get a scorer. But I don't think there's any smoke here. I think this is just a kind of a long shot. Like, the one thing that I had read was that the Bucks would get Beal as part of a deal so that Phoenix could land Butler. It's like, why would we do that? Why would we help with that? I don't understand.
Yeah, Joe, we just want to make that happen for him. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we're trading anybody, like, why are we trading somebody to take on more money? Like, I just don't see that as a thing either. Not to cut this particular topic short, but Bradley Beal did say today that he would waive his no trade clause, which is he's one of like only a handful of players that has one. Mm-hmm. Miami, the Lakers, and Denver are his 3 that he would go for. So definitely seems like a Beal to Miami for Butler deal could be brewing. That makes a lot of sense. Beal clearly wants to live somewhere with a beach or go to Denver and try to win a championship. Those are his only options. So, I don't think it's actually going to happen, but I don't want Bradley Beal on our team. I don't think he fits.
If the Bucks trade for Bradley Beal, it's going to be tough to be a Bucks fan for a little bit. It's going to be. I would, that.
How do you really feel though?
That makes no sense at all. I don't like who thinks Bradley Beal is even close to a max player. Like, I didn't think that when Washington traded him. A lot of people didn't think that. I was upset that that there was a rumor that the Bucks were interested.
Yeah.
At that time.
I do remember that.
And now it's just like he's been healthy-ish, not super healthy, but he's he's played games, and it's not great. And now he's coming off the bench, um, making 52 million a year, whatever he makes. So the other thing is, so you're trading Damian Lillard, or how?
Yeah,
How are you matching that salary? And like, I'm never going to understand the salary cap and how this all works, but I guess you can aggregate players if that gets you under the second apron or something like that. So maybe you could trade. Even so, what are you going to do? I guess it would have to be Middleton and Lopez, if you even if you can do that. So you're going to give up Middleton and Lopez or Dame for Bradley Beal through 2027. It's just like I don't. Yeah, I think it's BS. It's hard to believe that this would be a real thing to consider, but it's Mark Stein, NBA reporter, saying it's a real thing. So
Mark Stein is trying to ruin our podcast with such ridiculous trade ideas.
All right, the last one that I think we'll go over, unless we have another one, is Daniel Gafford from Dallas. So that would be, he makes $14 million through next season. The trade that I saw through Sports Illustrated included Lopez. So, whoever the other players are, let's just say it's Lopez. Lopez goes out, Gafford comes in. Is that something that you'd be interested in? What do you think?
Well, so now here's a little of a different flip. Young player, 26 years old, 6'10". So, I mean, you're not losing a ton of height there. Younger guy, more athletic. We've talked before that, like, Brook Lopez is great, but that game is just not the same NBA for most teams anymore. You have to be more athletic, and it's just not really his style anymore, especially as an older big man. I don't really know where that works. We've talked about this before. There's certain teams that's going to match up for. So now I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about Gafford. So I don't know his injury history and stuff like that. But, if you're getting a 6'10", 265-pound 26-year-old, in theory, looking at now 12.6 rebounds, I mean, that's more in line of somebody I would take a shot on if I had to give up Lopez. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do this in a heartbeat. I think it's a no-brainer. I don't understand why Dallas would do it. Like, I don't get that. But hasn't he been good for them? I know they have another big guy, but I thought that was part of their whole deal. Like, maybe we don't watch enough Mavs basketball, but at least last season when they made it to the championship, that was like a big part of their team, and both of those guys were pretty awesome. So, yeah, kind of I'm not so sure how serious any of these are, to be honest, but they are reported as being things that are actually being talked about by the teams. But yeah, I would do that just for to get younger, to get more athletic. I don't know his 3-point shooting. That's what you're going to lose big time. But and you had Brook as your most improved, I think, or second MVP.
He was second MVP.
Yes, that's right. Maybe we were just talking earlier about that.
We were. But yeah, I mean, I think Brook's been having a great year. The problem is we just know he's not going to be back. So you kind of have to make the decision at that point. And that's what part of this comes from. Like, you talked about it before. This is a likable team. If you're a Bucks fan, most of these guys were, on the championship team. It sucks to watch guys get older and have to move on. But that's the reality. I mean, the odds of us having Brook, Bobby, and Chris on this team next year are like 5% or less. Like, it's just not going to really happen. I just don't see that any way that it will. So you have to get to a certain point. Now, the matter is, does Giannis have a say? Or is Giannis just like, look, I just want to win. So whatever that's going to be, like, I trust you guys and let's get this done. And, it's a business. These guys know that they can still be friends without having to be on the same team and that they don't have a ton of say in it. But I'm curious how much Giannis has a say in some of these things. Like, does he say Chris Middleton is untouchable or I leave? I don't think he would say that.
I don't think he says that, but I think he kind of gives that impression. and the
Yeah.
Bucks read that and play off of that and make their decisions kind of off of what they think Giannis is thinking. That's my guess. Yeah, I would be surprised if he's outright saying, don't trade Chris or else, but I assume Giannis would be pretty upset if we traded Chris Middleton.
Yeah.
Because they grew up together. They've been playing here for their whole careers. So,
but if Chris opts out, are we going to be held hostage by Giannis wanting him back?
I think that's a little different. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. But if we're sending him out and it's a surprise, like Drew, it's like, oh, I didn't even know. Like, they didn't tell me. I heard from my hairdresser or whatever it is. So I think that would be a problem. But if it's like Chris is a free agent and he wants more money, he gets more money from someone else, I think that's fair enough. And Giannis understands the business enough where he'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
So, well, in terms of like who the Bucks might trade and who they should think about trading, who they shouldn't think about trading. I mean, I think obviously Giannis is like a untouchable. You wouldn't even have a conversation. Is there anybody else that's close to that where you're not even going to pick up the phone and have a conversation?
No, and I say it's because you always want to listen. You never know what anybody's going to do. Someone might just be absolutely nuts and have some weird plan. I mean, look at the Brooklyn GM years ago trading, like mortgaging the future of the Brooklyn Nets to get Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce when the Celtics clearly were ready to move on from those guys anyway. They're like, yeah, they're getting older. They're taking up a ton of cap. Like, yeah, wait, you're going to take these guys and give us a bunch of picks? Like, yeah, and no chance. So, yeah, I mean, you're always going to pick up the phone. I think if it's Giannis, no, like it's just not. We're never going to get to that point where that's going to make sense. But everyone else, I think you got to listen. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think the second, I agree. I mean, no one's on that same level, of course. But in terms of saying, like, who's next? Who's the next kind of closest to untouchable? I'm going to go with, I think it's AJ Green. Largely because he gets $2.3 million a year and he's signed through next season. And also with how much playing time he's getting, how important he is to this team. So the combination of how good he currently is, and he's so young and hopefully getting better and better, and we have him under contract through next year for the minimum. That's probably why I would have him number 2. Do you have another player who's kind of maybe in that similar realm?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the AJ Green thing, especially salary purposes. If you're going to be maxing out Dame and Giannis, that's a huge part of it. So along those same lines, like Ajax, I think falls into that. He was a second-round pick, so he can't be making a ton of money. He's making starting lineups from time to time. I think the way that he's progressed from last year to this year has been pretty significant. So I would love to see what year 2 to 3 does. So yeah, I mean, along that same line, then yeah, I mean, Green and Ajax would be the, yes, I'm still picking up the phone, but you're going to have to really sell me on something here because I can't imagine you offer me something that would make this work.
Yeah, those guys for sure. And Ryan Rollins is not at that level, but he's also a guy that you're going to have to get a lot. You're going to have a pretty good return to just kind of let that guy go. And speaking of that, the Bucks need to figure out how to keep him on the roster. So I feel like something is going to happen, especially with Ryan Rollins. They need to make space for Rollins, and maybe that just means waiving a guy. But I feel like my guess is it's going to be a small trade, but I think something's going to happen. But let's say nothing happens. Are we content? Do you think? How does that? Are you like, all right, that's fine. We're good. We're gonna make a run and possibly win the championship, or are you thinking we got to do something here, or I'm not that confident?
I am confident. I think, Maybe I'm nostalgic confident, and that's maybe what's mixing things up. It's because, most of these guys were on the championship team. I think they play well together. I think we've seen some big progressions with Doc outside of the very beginning of the year, and I feel like we do have the pieces that are starting to gel to make something work. But that just could be my want. The reality is, I do think, I question how Brooke is going to hold up in the playoffs against a more athletic team. I do question that. I do wonder what kind of Bobby I'm going to get. The year we won it, Bobby really stepped up in the playoffs and he was awesome. But there are games where we've talked about before, he can be a hothead. He can be wanting to shoot too much. That makes me nervous as well. Chris, we've talked about before, he's not an injury risk, but he is coming off of significant injuries. What if we lose him again? Last year we lost Giannis and Dame in the playoffs, and Chris was doing everything he possibly could to keep us in there. If we don't have these injuries, let's see what happens. So I don't think we have to make something happen. I think we could run it back with this team. I think if we do make some trades, they're going to be minor, unless we're hitting some rumblings about Bobby or Chris not wanting to play with us again, or something along those lines.
Yeah. I guess to answer the question, I think we can win. I do think that Doc needs to make a couple of changes and be open to some things. If we keep running out the same lineups, the same rotations, I think we're going to fall short. I think we have to have some Giannis at the 5 to win a championship. So if Doc refuses to do that, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think for one, the Celtics are going to be pretty tough to get by if we don't do that for some of the game. And just in general, that's going to be a really tough lineup for opponents and certain opponents' lineups that they have. So I'm just really hoping he's kind of holding it back. I mean, it's obviously something that he's thought of. It's actually been talked about, and supposedly he said he was going to do that, but it's not happening. So I guess I would just be worried that he's not going to do it. But if he's open to it, I think our roster is good enough, with the best player in the world, basically, plus a Damian Lillard who's playing at a high level. I think that's a good starting point right there, and then you throw in the AJ Green and a Gary Trent Jr., shooting 46% from 3. Andre Jackson Jr., give him more playing time, get him some confidence, and he's a defensive stopper who can hopefully hit those corner threes. I think we have the roster. So I'm good if we don't do anything. But if Horace can kind of maneuver a way to get that athletic big, that would be awesome. That's what I want.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think we should brace ourselves for nothing to happen.
Yes.
But I think that would be a big win for sure. If we can keep a lot of pieces, PC has been getting some more minutes. Maybe they're trying to show PC and Beauchamp off to some teams.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's definitely a possibility. Apparently there are a couple people that seem to be interested in maybe taking on PC's contract. That would give us a little bit of flexibility as well. It's possible. I think that we should just brace ourselves for nothing big happening. I don't think we're going to have a Ray Allen for Gary Payton at the last second deal like we had 25 years ago.
Real quick on PC. He's an awesome, if he's your 10th guy, that's pretty good. And I think that's awesome. Now, I would prefer to replace him with something that we need, something that really fits perfectly with our team, and not just kind of another wing, like a 10th. We have a lot of those guys. So I'm good with trading him, but not just for anybody. You see on Twitter some of these trade ideas that people are throwing around. It's just get rid of PC for whatever. And it's no, he's a solid veteran who won a championship here, who's you can trust with the ball. He actually could play a really important role in a championship run, potentially. And just to throw that away like it's garbage is not right. It's just, people need to get a handle on this. Like he's not a terrible player, and there is a role for him. But he is the 9th or 10th guy in the rotation, and so the first and he's on a contract for next year, so that's another reason why it would be nice to flip him for something that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But we can move on to Flop Corner, which is basically the same topic. NBA trade journalism. What is going on with this? And we could have journalism and media like every week as Flop Corner, but so I guess it's a constant thing here. But here are some of the headlines that I saw. Okay, headline: Bucks acquire $134 million two-time NBA champion in proposed blockbuster trade with Celtics. And when you see that headline, I'm like, what? The Bucks made a trade? Who'd they get? It's like nothing happened. You're just throwing this idea out there, but you're writing a headline as if it happened. Bucks proposed 4-team trade lands Milwaukee with $251 million All-Star. Okay, they didn't land anybody. That trade could land them, that guy that you're making up, Sporting News. This was a good one. Headline is Bucks predicted to part ways with Brook Lopez in blockbuster deal. Okay, so it's a prediction. This is based off of evidence. We think this is happening in a potential blockbuster deal. In the article, it says, in this new trade idea, the Bucks make the tough decision, blah, blah, blah. They're just making it up, literally making it up. There's no basis to this at all. They're just having fun.
Yeah.
But let's throw around this headline as if it's this is a thing that's really happening. Just all these reports are made implying a trade is seriously being considered, or it sounds like it actually happened, or it's like about to happen. They're having talks. They're seriously talking. These two teams are really having serious conversations, and none of it's like, it can't. First of all, it can't all be true. Okay, there's various reports that are basically the same kind of a thing where they're having serious conversations here, they're having serious conversations there. So you're telling me that the Bucks are going to trade Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis and Chris Middleton and Pat Connaughton? Like all of them, all these different trades are going to happen? Like, I doubt it. Probably none of them are going to happen. It's all bullshit. Like, just stop making stuff up and just give us the facts, please.
Yeah, it's I always think of like these situations of like Chris Windhorst, or what's his name?
Brian Windhorst. Wendy?
Brian Windhorst, yeah. He's like, what I'm hearing. It's like, wait a minute. What do you mean you're hearing this? Like, I don't believe that you're hearing any of this. I think it's like making it up, kind of putting some things together. I can't imagine an NBA player that's like, the agent calls up and says, hey, there's talk that we might send you to Boston. I'll keep you posted. And he immediately grabs his phone and texts Brian Windhorst to say, hey, I want to help you do your job better, so I want to let you know there's talk of me going to Boston. Who is texting him to tell him this stuff? Like, are there people hiding under the table? And are they really going to, like, risk their job to give Windhorst an update on, like, what's happening? Like,
I know.
Let's use some logic here. None of this stuff is happening. Like, you're not talking to anybody. I don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think Shams, like, Schefter, his second phone is just like, there's like nothing. It's just
his
fake.
friend group. Yeah, they're just texting.
He's like always on. He's literally doing a piece on SportsCenter. He's like, oh, I gotta check this text while I'm on camera doing this in this like 30-second bit. Yeah, it is hard to believe, and they could make any of that up, and no one can possibly call him out on it.
No,
it's like, well,
it's the biggest scam ever.
It really is.
It really is. We've uncovered it. It's like, I'm getting something. Hold on one second. Oh, looks like Giannis is happy in Milwaukee. I just found that out right now.
Brett's phone's blowing up again.
Yeah. Who texted you? Giannis, the Bucks? Like, oh, yeah. It's unimportant. I can't reveal my sources. But I just got that breaking news. I had to just look at it right now. Come on.
Yeah, and all these sources, they just love to just share this information with the reporter that really just gives them a high or something. Like, oh, I gotta tell Wendy this news about LeBron James.
Like, so that Wendy can say it on ESPN. Why do you care? Like, why do you care that he tells anybody? I don't get it. What do you get out of this relationship?
Yeah. And in addition to this, like, how annoying are they? Like, how often is Wendy and Schefter and Shams, how often are they texting whoever these people are that they're talking to? You know, like every day, every 2 hours, you're like, hey, did you hear anything? Did you hear anything? Like, anything you got for me? I'll take you out to dinner. Next time I'm in Kansas City, I'll buy you a steak dinner. Like, well, they must be the most annoying people.
Yeah, it's like, dude, I know your job. If I hear something, I got your number. Like, you don't have to keep checking in with me every 2 hours. Like, I'll tell you if I hear something, but, like, don't bother me. Like, I'm trying to hear something to tell you, and you're bothering me. I don't understand. What do they possibly get out of this whole thing?
I don't know. And why do we know that you have two phones anyway? Like, shouldn't you just have a phone that you're working with? If you have a personal phone, like, why do I know? Why am I seeing it on Sports Center? You know what I mean? I should just be seeing your work phone on Sports Center. So what's the deal with all these phones flying around?
Well, this is my AFC phone, and this is my NFC phone. And I don't know how phones work, so apparently I need two of them to store the data and text messages I'm getting from people.
Yeah, if we have any sports journalists out there, maybe you could email us an angry email and kind of fill us in with everything that we got wrong. That'd be appreciated. But yeah, let's jump into the mailbag. We did get an email. It's a kind of a touchy, like, I'm afraid to ask this question a little bit. But we're going to go for it because we respect our listeners, especially those that email us. So this is from Chris. Who is whiter, either culturally, skin color, personality, I guess however you want to define it, Liam Robbins or AJ Green?
Yeah, that is an interesting question.
We're afraid to answer it here.
So interesting thing that I'll look up for both of them. So one thing that you could say is, like, all right, like, if you're picturing a white guy, and I said one of them is from Iowa, would you be like, yeah, that's the white guy? Well, they're both from Iowa, so that knocks that out right away. So
yeah, I thought the same thing. Yeah,
both white guys from Iowa. So which one is more white, I guess? So I'm gonna say AJ Green, and I'll tell you why. AJ Green could wear a baseball hat and a flannel, and you could be like, that guy might be a farmer. Like, he's probably got a pickup truck and something. If Liam Robbins puts on a baseball hat and a flannel, you're like, that guy's still 7 feet tall. Like, he must be doing something besides just farming. So, based on that, like an Iowa farm boy, 6'4" is still very tall, but I think AJ Green is whiter because he would be able to blend in on a farm in Iowa a lot more than Liam Robbins.
I'm looking at both of their pictures on Basketball Reference, and you are totally correct that AJ Green, he looks like a farmer for sure. So he definitely has that going for him. But the picture of Liam Robbins, he has pretty much a mullet from what I can tell. Somewhat of a mullet, at least. It's hard to see exactly, but he has that going for him, and who I'd say that's a pretty white thing to do, to have a mullet. So Liam Robbins has something going for him there. He went to Drake University. That sounds white. I don't know much about Drake, but I don't know. Feels like a white boy university. Then he went to Minnesota. Then he went to Vanderbilt.
White. Very white.
By the way, he went to a lot of colleges. Three Division I colleges. That's not a good sign. Also, no. By the way, I'm having PTSD as a Badger fan from AJ Storr. Anyhow, Liam Robbins also went to Kansas. I don't know if that doubles the whiteness. He grew up in Iowa, but then in high school he must have moved to Kansas at some point because he went to high school. By the way, the name of the high school he went to in Iowa was Assumption in Davenport. Okay, then he went to Kansas. Both Christian schools. I don't know. I think, the thing about AJ Green that makes him kind of white is he's a good shooter. Even though there's plenty of good black shooters, for some reason, that's a white thing that we think about. Oh, he can shoot threes really well. You're kind of thinking white a little bit. So this is a great question, because it's so difficult. But, part of the problem is we don't see Liam Robbins play. I honestly, how much have I seen Liam Robbins play? Not much. A minute or two? I mean, I'm not really watching Garbage Time. Sorry. I am a fan, but maybe not to that level where I'm watching every second. So I'm missing a lot of Liam Robbins. I haven't gone back and looked at anything. I don't remember him in college. So I don't know what he plays like, but I will say this. He kind of has a look. He looks a little bit like he raps, like he's a rapper. He's into hip hop. Maybe he in college. Maybe he even put out a tape. What year is he? No, he's too old. A CD. What do they do? MP3s, I guess.
An MP3.
He's on Bandcamp. I don't know. What do you do?
I don't know.
I wish, if he made a tape.
A YouTube clip?
If he made a cassette tape of him rapping. Now I'm going to go more white. Okay, actually. I don't know why. This makes no sense whatsoever. My final answer is AJ Green. Okay, maybe when on the mailbag, I want to hear what does our audience think? What do the viewers think?
Yeah, I do think AJ Green looks like he drinks milk with every meal, and he
has had a lot of milk. He will not break a bone. Guaranteed, he's not breaking a bone in his NBA career.
And I also feel like he's always cupping the milk cup. Those types of people that's always eating, but their left hand is cupping the milk the whole time. That's
I think maybe that sounds like maybe a Catholic thing, because you grew up with a big family and you had to protect your food. That's a legitimate thing.
Yes,
where it's you're too late. Sorry, but we ate all the food.
Don't try not to die, kid. It's not our problem.
Exactly.
We're not here to feed you.
All right, we're losing it here. So, tell us who you think is more white, Liam Robbins or AJ Green. Also, send us more questions. We had fun with this one, and we're probably canceled. Our Twitter account's probably down. I know they don't do that on Twitter anymore. There's more free speech, but I think this went over the line, and might be gone. So hopefully we're back in a couple weeks. You can email us at doubledribblebucks@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at podddb, and subscribe and rate us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, go Bucks.